Well, hey, glad to be back with you again. And today's topic is be intentionally great wherever you are. This is something that honestly, I believe God shared with me over 10 years ago, around 10 years ago, about just how to live and lead. And that's why my official business name is Lead Life Big LLC, is because I believe that God wants us to be intentionally great wherever we are. And I think a lot of times it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that I've got to get to the next thing, or I need to get to my ultimate goal in order to really be great at what I'm doing. And what I have learned over the years, what I believe fully in my heart, is that we need to be great right where we are in order to be promoted and get new opportunities toward maybe an end destination, a bigger goal that we have. So maybe think about right now, what is a big goal in your life, a big goal in your career? Where do you want to ultimately be 5, 10, 15 years from now? And then think about, are you going to wait until then to actually be the best version of yourself that you can be? Or are you going to say, you know what? I'm right here right now. I need to be fully present. I need to be fully engaged. I need to give my best effort. Sometimes we need to check our attitudes. I know for myself, that's been one of the biggest things is in the season I'm in, am I having the right attitude about where I am and what I'm doing? Am I giving my best effort? As a youth sports coach, the one thing that I remember for years, we always told our boys, especially on the baseball team that I coached, was there's two things you can control: your attitude and your effort. There's a lot of other things outside of your control, but your attitude and your effort are things you can control. And I believe that's true for any of us. And, we told our young players that at a young age to get their mind right when things go wrong out on the field. But I think it's a lesson that many of us as adults need to be reminded of from time to time. You see, the reality is no job is perfect, no business is perfect, no relationship is perfect, no situation is perfect. So, what are we going to do in those imperfect situations? Are we going to diminish ourselves? Are we going to say, you know what, I'm not going to give my best because this isn't the best situation? Or are we going to say, I'm going to give my best no matter what and try to make the most of my situation? Because here's the thing, a lot of the times, the challenges we face, the things that we are hating sometimes or not liking, at least in our situation, are actually the things that are basically the material for teaching us lessons that we need to learn right here, right now, so that we can be better someday when we get to our more ideal situation. This journey I've been on, for years, I was a pastor. For 20 years, I was a pastor in churches. And I learned a lot and I grew a lot and I had a lot of great experiences. And then I believe God called me outside of that into the business world, into the marketplace to help leaders just in the day to day of their lives. And that was a big jump. That was a big adjustment for me. I had a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn, I feel like sometimes. And I know I'm going to be ever growing in that. But the reality is, every situation I was in taught me something that built for the future. It's like building blocks that just kind of stack on one another. And so the things I was learning in college and, that translated into my first job as a youth pastor, that translated into my second job when we moved to another church and I had different responsibilities to another situation when we moved. And then ultimately to starting my business and learning all that I've learned and working with the different leaders I've worked with, everything has been stacking on top of one another. So I look today and go, you know what, 25, 30 years ago where I was, that was just kind of that the lower level of where I am today because I had to learn those lessons then in order to be where I am today and be able to help people that I'm called to serve today. And the same is true with you. The same is true with your people. If you're leading a team of people, guess what? Their experiences right now are helping them become better so that they can have a brighter future as well. And you as a leader, if you can help them see that perspective, it can be huge because a lot of times they get stuck, they get frustrated, and they don't know what to do next, or they don't know why certain things are happening the way they are. They feel like they're capped out, and they don't feel like they have maybe opportunities to grow and or advance in their situation. But I would encourage you to encourage them and maybe even challenge them if needed, that, what are you doing right now to be the best you can be right in your role right now? Because someday a new opportunity may open up. Someday there might be a new thing that you need to go do. What are you doing today that's making you better and more prepared for the future becomes the question. So I think it's one of those things that we need to be introspective on first. We need to think about it for ourselves and make sure we're leading ourselves well. But it's also an opportunity for us to really have these deeper conversations with those that we're leading. And that could be a client in the business, that could be, once again, your employees, that could be your kids, that could be your spouse, that could be a friend who's just struggling with seasons. And, years ago, I remember one of my daughters, her friend's dad was going through a career decision. He'd been in a company for quite a while, and he called me and he said, "Hey, can we just talk?" He's like, this feels like a big step for me to to leave this company that I've been at for quite a while and move over to this new company." And we just kind of talked through that. I had another dad of a boy that we coached baseball with years ago, and he kind of had a similar thing. He had multiple opportunities at his job, and he's like, I want to make sure I'm making the best decision. And so we talked through that, like what is the best, thing to move next so that it can advance your career and can build your resume and can help you have new opportunities down the line. And so, we go through this different times in life. And today is a little less, I'll say, tactical from maybe a lot of the other episodes I do about leadership development. But I think this one can be at the heart of what we can make the most impact with is, are we being great or being intentionally great right where we are each and every day? Wake up each day and say, you know what, I'm going to make the most of this day. I don't know what's coming, but I'm going to choose my attitude. I'm going to choose to give my best effort. I'm going to choose to have the right demeanor towards my coworkers, my clients, my customers, whoever it may be that I interact with. That's a daily choice. It really is. And even in my first book, The Way to Greatness, and I talk about 5 continual choices that we have to make over and over and over again. And the first one is about faith. I talk about, we need to build our faith, build our God core, as I call it. Second one is to protect our relationships, making sure that we're doing what we can to have healthy relationships. Third one is about renewing our minds. Are we filling our minds with good things? Are we making sure that we are coming from a place of mental health and vitality and energy and enthusiasm? And then fourth is about, excuse me, managing our resources. Are we being good stewards of the things that we have? And that is our job. That, are we being good stewards of our job? Are we being good stewards of our families? Are we being good stewards of the material possessions, the money that we have as well? Stewardship is all about every aspect of our life. And I believe that being intentionally great is actually a stewardship issue. And then finally, I talk about in that book how to maximize your time, because every one of us has 24 hours in a day to do something with. Warren Buffett, as a billionaire, has the same amount of time as the child who hasn't even thought about what they want to be when they grow up. We all have the same amount of time every day. We get to choose every day what we're going to do with that. And so when I talk about this topic of being intentionally great, it's not just about being a great leader, although it certainly includes that. It's about being a great person and saying, you know what, I'm going to choose today to be my best. And here's the thing, I also talk in that book about, and also in my Magnetic Leader book, about pursuing excellence, not perfection, because that's a trap. The perfection thing is a trap because none of us are perfect, right? No, there's no perfect situations, there's no perfect person. So when we try to be perfect, we're never going to succeed at that, but we can be excellent. And I believe that excellence is doing the best we can with what we have at any given moment, wherever we are. So you may not like your current situation. I know plenty of people who would choose to be in a different situation, maybe a different job, maybe a different relational situation, maybe a different financial position, whatever it may be. Most of us would like to be somewhere else in a different situation at some level at different times in our lives. But in the midst of this current situation that we're in, am I choosing to be the best I can be? Am I choosing to operate at a high level? Because if not, that's on me. Now, if I'm giving my best effort, I'm doing the best I can, I'm trying my best, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm trying to, engage with people at the best level, and maybe I'm still not getting the results that I desire, or I'm still not getting to where I want to be. Well, that happens. But at least at the end of the day, you know that you've given your best effort. The reality is, look, I mentioned I coach youth sports, but I love sports in general, and I think about how many professional athletes give their best effort out on the court or out on the field, and their team still loses, right? Right now, in the middle of the World Series, I mean, there are guys who are making millions and millions of dollars to be a professional athlete that are incredible players, and guess what? There's a winner and a loser every game of the World Series too, and there's going to be a loser of the series. And does that mean that those players and those teams are losers? No. It means that they might have fallen short of their goal as a team. It might have meant that they didn't accomplish the big goal of winning the trophy, but they're still elite athletes. They're still elite performers on the field. And the reality is that if they can walk off the field and say, you know what, we may have lost, but I gave everything I could. I did the best I could. And even when I might have been having a bad game, I might have been struggling at the plate, I might have been struggling to throw strikes, I might have been struggling to field properly or whatever it may be, I still tried my best. That's where the attitude and effort things comes back into play. Things are going to go wrong in life and sports, whatever. But the reality is that we can still give our best effort every day in every situation. I think that it's this idea that, look at where your feet are planted at this moment, wherever you're listening to this. If you're driving in your car, heading to work, or if you're taking a walk or you're with your family, whatever it is that you're listening right now, think about, am I being the best I can be in this moment where I am? Am I preparing, if you're driving, right? Am I preparing to be the best I can be at my job today? If you're, at home with your family, am I being the most present parent or spouse that I can be right now? If you're with friends or out in the community, am I being the best I can be with the people I'm around right now? When you ask those questions, when you think about this, it just changes everything, because the reality is sometimes we do let our foot off the gas pedal, so to speak. Sometimes we're not at our best. Sometimes we do allow ourselves to slack off. And I'm not trying to say you need to strive and drive yourself into burnout. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is about having a mindset that I want to be the best I can be based on who I am, the skills I have, the talents, the abilities, the gifts, the resources I have. I want to do the best I can with what I have right now. And some days, you know what, it's going to be maybe a less than stellar day than others. That's understandable. That's where you have to give yourself grace. That's where you have to be merciful to yourself, and understand that others are going to give you that grace as well. And if they don't, then they probably miss this whole point as well. They probably are hard on themselves. In fact, I was actually talking to a group of people yesterday. We were having a conversation about acceptance was the topic, and how do you accept people but also still have accountability. And we were talking about that as far as how we engage with other people. And then the question kind of shifted to, well, what about yourself? How do you accept yourself? How do you hold yourself accountable? And I know for myself, and I know a lot of other people that are leaders and who are truly trying to excel in life, we can be so hard on ourselves. We can really be damaging to our own selves if we're not careful. And so it's one thing to have a high standard, but we also need to make sure we give ourselves graces, because greatness isn't about perfection. Greatness is about being the best we are with what we have in this moment, no matter what the situation is. And sometimes the moment stinks. Sometimes I don't feel good. Sometimes you don't feel good. Sometimes you're having an off day or an off week, an off month. Sometimes there's just years. I mean, think about, we went into 2020. I remember thinking this like, oh man, it's a new decade, right? It's 2020. It's so exciting. And then 3 months later, COVID shuts the world down, at least from here in the United States, and it already had been impacting the world before that. Um, that shifted things drastically and quickly for us. It was not ideal, right? We were all of a sudden stuck in our homes, and we couldn't go out based on the regulations at the time and all these things that we dealt with back then. 2020 was a rough year. And then 2021 open up lid is still not easy. And a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders were struggling. How do we come out of this? How do we move forward? And how do we change things? And, a lot of things were happening in those couple of years. And now we're 5 years removed, but the world has changed drastically and situations change daily. It's so dynamic in our world. And being an adaptable leader is so important today. Being an adaptable person, not just about leadership, but just as a human being. What we talk to our kids a lot about that just as teenagers, and they look to their future as, what's going on around them right now, but also where do they want to go? It's adaptability is huge. And we just have to be willing to be flexible and once again, do the best we can with what we have right where we are. So maybe your job sucks today. I'm sorry that that's the case. But I will say this, you're there for a reason, even though it may suck. I believe God has you there right here, right now for a reason, whether it's to teach you a lesson so that you can be better as you go forward, or maybe it's for you to be a model of what greatness looks like, even in the roughest of situations. When there's a downturn or a downtime for a business or an organization, and there's a lot of people that are, the morale is low, guess what? You can be that bright light still in that situation. And I'm not saying it doesn't take work because it does. I've been there. I've been there where I've had to get up in the morning and I dreaded going into the office because of the situation I was in. And that's honestly what was my launching point to even start my business and move forward into my life 10 years ago was the situation I was in was certainly less than ideal. It sucked. It was bad and I didn't like it. And I prayed a lot about being rescued from it and getting out of it. And it took a couple years for me to really understand what I was needing to do next. But I kept trying to show up and do the best I could even in the situation I was in. Did I like showing up to the office every day? Absolutely not. I dreaded it most days. But I kept moving forward and I kept trying to be the best I could for the people that I was responsible to and for. And I just kept saying, you know what? I don't know where my next step is, but I need to be the best I can be today. And that's when I really believe God gave me this vision of being intentionally great because it's easy to be great, so to speak, when everything's going well, when you feel like everything's hitting on all cylinders. It's much harder to be intentionally great when the situation is rough and not ideal. But I also believe that when you're in those tough situations and you're still working to be great, I also think that you have the greatest impact because when everything's going smoothly, people aren't necessarily looking to others for a way forward or a way out. They're not looking for that leader. When things are tough or rough or bad, that's when people start looking around for the leader. They're looking around for somebody to help them move forward. And I believe that that's where we have some of our greatest opportunities. So be intentionally great wherever you are. That's the message of today. And that's why I coach people the way I do is I want to help you understand what is that greatness opportunity in front of you? What is the next step? What is your vision? What is that destination you want to get to? What is the path to get there? What are the things you need to resolve or to fix or to grow in order to become the person you need to be in order to get there? Because that's a huge part of this is, I use the analogy a lot. It's like staying on top of one mountain and you're looking across the valley and you see another mountain you want to climb. But the reality is you can't just jump from peak to peak. You have to go back down the mountain into a valley and go through the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the tumultuous sections, because those are growth areas to get you ready to climb that next mountain. And so as much as we don't like it, and I'm one that I hate the valley sometimes, don't get me wrong. But I've also learned to appreciate the valley a lot more, that it is a growing period of time to get me ready for my ability to climb that next mountain, to achieve that next goal. And so maybe you're in a valley right now. And I just encourage you to stay the course, keep moving forward step by step. My uncle years ago gave me some of the best advice, and it was three words: keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. It's something that changed my mindset, honestly, because there are days when I want to quit. There are days when I say, you know what? Is it worth it? Is it worth the struggle? Is it worth the hassle? Is it worth the frustration, the confusion, the doubt, the fears, all the things, right, that we face? But guess what? If we keep moving forward step by step, day by day, moment by moment, sometimes we will be making progress. It may not feel like the progress we want. I'm somebody who, I'm disappointed most days of where I am not yet. And maybe you feel that way. For me, I have big visions, big dreams, big goals. And when I'm not there yet, and I never seem to be there, by the way, I get frustrated and I can get discouraged. But then I'm reminded to keep moving forward, to take the next step I see in front of me. Benjamin Hardy, as I've shared in previous episodes and in my blog, is one of my favorite authors. And he talks a lot about pathways thinking. And he's a psychologist, PhD. He's a coach and a consultant to leaders, and he talks to businesses about how can they grow exponentially. But one of the things he talks about is when you have a big vision, you have to think differently about how to get to that big vision. You can't just kind of keep doing the same old thing every day and get to that, massive vision that seems impossible in some ways at times. But the reality is if you have a big vision and you start to think, well, how do I accomplish that? How would I get there if I were truly moving forward, making progress? So think about that. How are you going to be great today? How are you going to keep moving forward today, even if you have a grand vision that you're nowhere near yet? And maybe you're saying, you know what, my current situation isn't ideal. It's not what I want it to be, but I can use what I'm doing right now to help me and be that next stepping stone or building block in the journey so that I'm ready for the next opportunities that come my way. If you need help with this, I'm here. Reach out to me. Go to my website, mcclurecoaching.com. I'd be more than happy to set up a free strategy session with you and would love to see how I could help you. And if you want help with your team, if you're saying, look, I need to develop a stronger team. Maybe I feel good, but my team members, they need to grow. They need to become better leaders. They need to become better, in their division, different divisions and departments and roles and responsibilities. And I'm not sure how to train them. Well, give me a call. Reach out to me on my website and fill out the form that's on there. And we'll have a free strategy session and talk about what are some opportunities, what are some ways to invest in your people so that ultimately they can relieve you and lift that burden that you may be feeling right now. So take care. God bless, and we'll see you soon.